Hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about what I shoot sports with. Sports photography is one of the very first things I ever shot when I first got my camera. My first camera was a Canon T6i Rebel, and it wasn't the greatest for sports. So I'm going to be going over what gear I use now and what gear I've used to shoot sports and kind of just talk about what I shoot sports with. So here we go. So what I shoot sports with is a Nikon D3s. This is one of the flagship Nikon cameras. It originally came out in 2009. It is older, but it handles high ISO pretty well. So that comes in handy because the high schools that I shoot at or the colleges, the lighting isn't the greatest. It shoots 9 frames per second, which is plenty to catch the action. It is a full frame sensor. So with any lens you are like a 50mm, you're going to be getting 50mm. So the lenses that I use are the 70-200. I use a Tamron 70-200, and I use a Sigma 120-300 f2.8. This lens is a beast. It's heavy, and I love using it for soccer and football. I've used it very little bit on basketball up in Kansas City. And then I have a 20mm Nikon 2.8D lens. This lens is crazy wide, so I don't use it a lot, but I have used it outside of sports, so you'll probably see some of that stuff. Now to talk about the Tamron 70-200, I feel like a 70-200 should be the first lens you buy when you're getting into sports. It's got a good range from 70-200 millimeter, and then on a crop sensor camera you're going to get even more out of it. And being at f2.8, it's great for low light, and you can even get an f4 for an even cheaper price, but you're going to be limited on how late into the night you can shoot with that without suffering by going with a slower shutter speed or boosting that ISO even more. When I use the 70-200 mostly is basketball. So with basketball, it's great to have when you're shooting under the baseline because you can go a little wider at 70, or you can even zoom in at 200 and get a half court or even a cross court if you're totally fine with cropping in a little later if you're on full frame. And if you're on a crop sensor, it could be a little limiting because it's gonna be cropped in a little more. So that 70 is gonna be almost like 100 millimeters. So it might be a little limiting. But if you're looking for that extra reach on a crop sensor, 70-200 is going to be a great lens. I started out shooting football and basketball with the 70-200. And then after about a year, I was, of course, wanting to upgrade to a bigger lens. And so the Sigma 120-300 was the lens that I went out and bought used. And it's been a phenomenal lens. So here's some stuff about the Sigma 120-300 2.8 lens. This is the older version, so it's not the newest version of Sigma where they have like the sports title on it, but it has 2 modes of optical stabilization, and so far it's been my favorite lens to shoot football with. I have tried a 300 f4 lens, and I wasn't a big fan of it, but at that time I was so used to having that change of focal length with the 70-200 that being fixed at 300 it's a lot different to shoot with. With the Sigma 120-300 2.8, I have a 1.4 teleconverter, and that turns it into a f4 lens. And with it being on the teleconverter, it turns it into a 170-420 millimeter lens at f4, which is awesome when I'm shooting like daytime baseball or daytime soccer or a well-lit soccer field or football field. It's been awesome to have the extra reach, and the sharpness, you don't lose much sharpness going to shooting at f4. Now the Nikon 20mm is a 2.8D, so it's an older lens. This lens originally came out in 1989, and it is the older autofocus system, but it was a gift from my uncle, and I was looking for a wider lens for like boxing to get the whole ring in it when I'm shooting ringside, or just a really cool different focal length. The 20mm just adds another cool look that you don't get with the zoom sport lenses that you normally would use. So to touch base on all the gear, the Nikon D3s that I have, I bought it used for $1,000 from a guy that I was doing my internship with to finish college to get my degree, and he let me rent to own it. So I was making payments to him throughout the year while I was shooting sporting events with him, and it's been a great camera, and I've never really wanted to upgrade to the D4 or the D5 on the Nikon side. And so it's, for being from 2009, it's been a phenomenal camera. With the Sigma 120 to 300, I paid just under $1,500 for it, and you could still get it used for about that price to $2,000 on the older version that I have. And on the Tamron 70 to 200, I spent $500 on it, which is a steal. And it's the macro, so you have that closer focusing distance that you can use it for, and it would be a great video lens, but the D3s is not a great camera body. But for photography, for sports, it's a sharp lens, and I'm glad that I have it now. And for the Nikon 20mm, you can buy it used for about $200 at the low end and see them up all the way to $650. So it probably just depends on the overall how well it's been kept up and stuff, but you can probably find newer 20mm for around that same price, I'm sure. I didn't really look, but it's been an awesome lens, and I'm glad that my uncle gifted it to me because I love pulling it out. So if you guys have any questions, put them down in the comment section, message me, whatever you want to do. I love shooting sports. It's one of the main things that really keep my passion in photography. Like if I'm getting bored of shooting landscapes or something, I try to find a sporting event to go shoot. So I hope you guys come back, like and subscribe, and leave me some comments on what videos you would like to see in the future. Thanks.